Well, folks, it finally happened. After all this time, we finally have some answers. After all the praying and debating and the wondering and the tweets and the back and forth, you know, some people probably thought this day would never come, but we just had to be patient. We just had to wait, and it's finally happened. James Gunn has finally released the DC Universe, well, Cinematic Universe, roadmap. Took longer than I expected. So basically, he released a video addressing the entire situation and how things are going to proceed going forward. So first things first, he addresses the current standing of the DC movies we have now. That being the Matt Reeves Batman, the Joker movie, the Teen Titans Go film, basically saying they are now all officially considered as DC Elseworlds. Now, for those of you who may not know this, the whole concept of Elseworlds is just essentially alternate timelines, alternate stories that are not part of the original canon of the DC storyline. Essentially the whole Elseworlds, the alternate story thing started back in the 1940s when you had comics like if Lois Lane got superpowers instead of Superman getting, you know, superpowers. But they weren't officially called Elseworlds until 1989 with a comic called Gotham by Gaslight. And essentially it was just an alternate storyline, alternate timeline, where Batman is back in the Victorian era and he's fighting people like Jack the Ripper and whatnot. I mean, I think they made an animated movie about it as well, but essentially, yeah, Elseworlds, separate stuff, not canon, but still for us to enjoy. Now, we have all been debating on what's going on with the remaining films, you know, before the official like reboot of the entire DC universe, because obviously we have some films that are already finished that just haven't released yet. So starting off, we have Shazam! Fury of the Gods. This movie apparently is supposed to tie directly into the Flash movie, where they're doing, you know, of course, the Flashpoint storyline where they're going to reboot everything. It begs to question the next two films going forward if the Flash movie rebooting the entire DC universe is the second film, because essentially the next one is Blue Beetle. And Blue Beetle, actually, it's starting to sound pretty tight. Obviously, you've got the Blue Scarab from space, attaches to Jamie Reyes' back. He gets the armor, the exoskeleton, you know, the alien suit where he has all these powers and whatnot. And what's cool is Jamie Reyes is going to be played by, sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, Romario Zolo Maraduena. I think I said that right, but I probably butchered it. For those of you out there who watch the Cobra Kai Netflix show, he's the guy who plays Miguel Diaz. So he's pretty tight. I'm looking forward to this movie. Now, Blue Beetle is the third film, so it's going to transition to the fourth film of the remaining DC movies, which is Aquaman 2. And this is, of course, going to be Jason Momoa's last time as Aquaman. But yeah, that officially wraps it up for those last four films. Now, Shazam, I kind of get, they're just kind of getting that out the way. Bleeding into the Flash movie, where everything's going to be rebooted, is a little odd. I figured that would be the last movie they would do, right? Because that's the point where everything like resets, essentially. The only one that really makes sense is Blue Beetle, because yeah, the DC universe is going to get rebooted with Flashpoint, and then we're going to get Blue Beetle, which makes sense because Blue Beetle is going to be like the first film, so no one's going to know, you know, whether that was before or after the, you know, the reboot, so it doesn't really matter. That's fine. It's a brand new movie, whatever. But the fact that Aquaman 2 is after that, so it's like, are they rebooting the universe and then Aquaman 2 is just going to have like a bunch of new faces, or is there going to be a point in the movie or in the after credits where the whole universe just like morphs into something else? Do you get what I'm saying? It's a little odd. I just thought Flashpoint would be last. And now on to the big cheese, the juicy news that we've all been waiting for. He's officially released his 8 to 10 year roadmap for the DC universe. Now this is going to cover film, TV, and gaming, and unlike Marvel where they call it phases, DC and James Gunn are going to call theirs chapters. You know, marketing, you don't want to get confused with another product. It's like, oh, this is the DC phase 4. No. This So Marvel's got their phases, DC's going to have chapters, and they're calling this first chapter Gods and Monsters. Now, the set of films and shows that I'm about to announce next, apparently they're just the first part of this first chapter. So it's not the entire chapter of Gods and Monsters, it's just the first part of it. So first up, we have Creature Commandos. This is an animated TV series that James Gunn is, I guess, writing. And this is gonna pretty much consist of like Frankenstein and other monsters being on a team You know, I kind of like the concept of the animated films because they're able to do a lot more graphically, essentially with like, you know, gore and special effects and powers and flying around and action scenes. So, you know, it's a good starting off point. I can definitely say right now with this list that I'm telling you guys, he is essentially copying sort of the Marvel formula of taking the smaller, lesser known, obscure heroes and bringing them into the light. A lot of these characters are probably going to be really popular over the next few years if these shows are done really well. But yeah, number 1, Creature Commandos, animated TV series with Frankenstein and other monsters. Good stuff. Number 2 is Waller. Yes, all about Amanda Waller. This is going to be a live action TV show where basically Amanda Waller is apparently going to team up with members of Peacemaker. So I don't know like if John Cena's Peacemaker is actually going to be on the team himself or if just some of the side characters, but apparently there's some story where her and the Peacemaker team up to do something. I always like seeing Viola Davis. I think she does a really good job of playing Amanda Waller, so I'm really interested to see where this story goes. And number 3, the big cheese that probably everyone's been waiting for. This is going to be the first official like big budget movie, like the official start of the DC universe. You'll see what I mean. This next one is going to be a film and it's called Superman Legacy. That's right, coming out of the gate swinging. James Gunn is personally writing this story, and yeah, obviously it makes sense. For the first big feature film in the timeline or in this roadmap, Superman would be the way to go. I mean, he's obviously the big kahuna when it comes to the superheroes. But yeah, so far we don't know anything about the story other than the fact that James Gunn is writing it and he's enjoying it. But yeah, this is going to be the first big official step in the DC universe film-wise going forward. Superman Legacy is supposed to release July 11th, 2025. So hopefully we'll keep on track and nothing will slow it down or, you know, push it back or anything like that. So let's see where this goes. Next up, this is kind of a personal favorite of mine. The next one he announced is called Lanterns, and you already know I'm about the Green Lanterns. So this is going to be a live action HBO show where it essentially consists of Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. So it's going to be, I don't know if they're both going to get equal face time or one more than the other, but essentially both of them are going to be patrolling the section of the universe where they essentially protect Earth from extraterrestrial threats and aliens and whatnot. And what's cool is we're probably going to get some cameos of like some other like side Green Lanterns as well, which I'm really stoked about. But the story apparently is Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart patrolling the Earth, protecting it, whatnot, and they stumble across a big mystery. And I guess this mystery is going to tie into the big overarching like crisis event that I guess the DC movies are going to be building up to. We really don't know yet, but apparently that's where it starts. I guess they're the ones who find out about it. And then going forward, it's just kind of spread throughout the rest of the movies. So looking forward to that. The next one is actually kind of surprising. I'm really, really curious to see this next one. The next film he's doing is called The Authority. This big film is going to be based off the Authority comic line, which was from Wildstorm, I believe. It's essentially a group of heroes who believe that the world is broken and they're going to do whatever it takes to fix it. Now, what's cool about the Authority, I mean, I personally never read the comics, but just doing a little research about them, they essentially fight dirty and they kill their villains. Like they don't play fair, they do what it takes to get the job done. So you can probably think of them like the Boys from the Amazon show, or if you've ever read the Boys comics, you know, they pretty much do whatever it takes and kill people. That's pretty much what the Authority is going to be. Now, just to sidetrack for a sec, Wildstorm Comics was created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi back in 1992 and was one of the founding members of Image Comics. Now, due to declining sales and comics all across America, Jim Lee actually left Image Comics and sold Wildstorm Comics to DC, I believe in 1998. Now, while there were some good stories that came from Wildstorm Comics during this time period, DC did what it always did and essentially just ran it into the ground. They officially closed and shut down Wildstorm Comics in 2010, I believe, but they did try to revive it in 2017. Just because of the fact that there were so many IPs and characters inside of Wildstorm Comics now under DC, they wanted to leave the door open. So even though they were shut down, they are essentially leaving it open so that they can use the characters and the rights for future stories. So it sounds like they intend to use them at a future point in time, at least in the comic world. but we definitely know they're going to be using them in the movie. So that's going to be dope. Next up is Paradise Lost, and this is going to be a live action TV show, and yeah, essentially based off of Paradise Island, which, you know, is also known as Themyscira, where all the Amazons hang out, Wonder Woman's people, essentially. So this show is essentially going to be about the Amazons doing whatever, I guess, on Themyscira, and I believe they said it's going to have like a Game of Thrones feel to it, you know, so I love Game of Thrones, so I'm down. I'm curious to see what's going on with this. Next up, personal favorite of mine, you all know it's coming. The next major film we're getting in the DC universe after that is Batman the Brave and the Bold. Yes, finally, final freaking lead. Batman is coming to the big screen, obviously separate from the Elseworlds Matt Reeves Batman, but yes, Batman Brave and the Bold. This story is going to center around Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne as Robin. And for all of you out there who know about Damian, he's an assassin, he kills people, he's a little smartass, and he doesn't like to take orders from anybody. A lot of people like Damian. I'm hit or miss with him. He's pretty interesting though, for the very least. So essentially the whole story is going to be Bruce as Batman trying to teach, or I guess reteach Damian the proper way to be a Robin, to be a hero. Because obviously Batman has a strict no-kill rule, and Damian says that's stupid, we were trained by assassins, I should just kill anybody I don't like. So the whole story is gonna be him trying to, you know, rein him in, be like, hey, if you wanna work with me and I need to somewhat be a father figure, since I am your biological father, yeah, you can't be killing folks. But yeah, I'm very interested to see this movie when that comes out. Damian Wayne, I wonder who's gonna play him, because Damian is a little shit. He's a little asshole. But yeah, this will be the first introduction of the Bat family going forward. So after this, we'll probably start seeing, I guess, Nightwing and Batgirl and other characters being introduced, but they're gonna start off with Damian. Next up in line is Booster Gold. For all of you Booster Gold fans out there, you're probably screaming in excitement. Booster Gold's okay. I was never really a big fan of his, but you know, it is what it is. Live action TV show, of course. Essentially a loser from the future steals a bunch of technology and travels back in time to the current time that we're in, and he's essentially trying to build like fame and wealth, and he's trying to be popular, essentially because he was a nobody in the future. That's literally the premise. I assume this TV show is going to be more comical than anything, probably pretty lighthearted. He doesn't really do a lot of serious stuff because he's kind of an idiot, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Next up is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This is going to be a big budget film, so finally Supergirl is going to get what she deserved. I believe the Woman of Tomorrow is based off of Tom King's story, where essentially she is a darker, more mature version, not like the happy-go-lucky girl that she normally is. Essentially, she's tired of living in Superman's shadow. She doesn't really know where she fits in on Earth because he was raised there and everyone loves him, and everywhere she goes, people just like compare her to him, which is, you know, really disheartening. So she decides to go off on her own. You know, I think she just turned 21, so she's like, oh, I can drink now. So she goes to some planet, some bar, starts drinking, and then essentially goes on an adventure from there. But apparently throughout this adventure, people freaking die. Like, she sees people dying and she has to deal with some really hard stuff that really forces her to grow up. So I'm curious to see this darker tone that they're gonna take with it. I mean, it's not just gonna be just so dark that it's just depressing, but it's definitely going to be a little more mature about her coming of age and essentially finding out who she is and where she fits in the world. So that'll be interesting to see. And last but not least, the final film that they're working on will be Swamp Thing. I honestly never got a chance to watch the Swamp Thing TV show since it was canceled before it could essentially finish, but I heard it was really, really good. And it sounds like they're going to stick to that formula because they say this film is going to be a dark horror origin story about Swamp Thing. If this kind of kicks off, you know, his career or the next set of movies, I'm all for it. I would love to see Swamp Thing on the big screen. Now, those are all of the 10 projects that they're currently working on for this roadmap, this chapter called Gods and Monsters. I'm really interested to see where this goes. All of these movies are going to tie into each other. They're all going to have an overarching theme, kind of like, you know, the original Marvel movies where you had Thanos and the Infinity Stones in the background. You know, I'm curious when the first film comes out, which I guess is Superman Legacy, where this is going to go. I don't know if they're going to essentially introduce the overarching crisis story in a TV show before then, because I do know when it comes to Lanterns, the HBO Live show, that's where they're actually going to dive into the mystery that leads them, I guess, into this crisis. So hopefully they kind of leave some breadcrumbs in the shows and films before then to kind of give us an idea. And I say crisis, I don't know if it's a crisis, but I say crisis is because, you know, with DC, that's typically all their big events. Their big events typically tend to be crises. I mean, it could be something else. I mean, I don't think it's going to be Darkseid. We've already kind of had that with Zack Snyder. But yeah, I'm curious to see what the big event, you know, that's why I say the term crisis. Don't take it literally, but whatever big event they're leading to, I'm curious to see what it's going to be. It is so dope to finally get some answers. I was waiting. I'm like, it's either going to be the end of January or beginning of February, but he's going to have to release something. He's been hired and working on stuff, and we just didn't really get any news. It's like a breath of fresh air. We can finally have something to look forward to. All the speculation, we're all going to be talking about it. We're all going to be like, oh my God, they're probably going to do this story. They're probably going to do this story. I'm curious to see what the fans come up with in the coming days, in the coming months, in the coming years. But man, finally we got a roadmap. Well, anyway, that's all I had to say. I just wanted to update you guys on that. We finally got it. Man, I'm looking forward to the DC universe going forward. I can't wait. See you guys later.